Welcome back to the 4th episode. Last episode, we've completed the first dungeon and obtained 1/3 of the pendants, which was the Pendant of Courage which matches Link. Then, we've collected the Book of Mudora and made our first preparations before the next dungeon. Today, we shall finish our preparations and head for the second dungeon. You see that spot in the water that swirls? That's used to get somewhere else on the map while swimming, sort of like a teleporter. It will require to get an item for swimming, or else we'll just drown. After finishing the dungeon, we might try to find the item in question. The man over there has the 4th bottle of the game. As of now, we only have 2 out of 4 bottles. Something to keep in mind for the future, it's that the 4th bottle is less in the open. Since it shall require of us to complete a certain event. One day, we'll get to it. But for now let's complete that dungeon. We need to make sure that we're at full strength. That person is Ajina, the brother of Sahasrarulka. The difference between the two is that Ajina has yellow on their belt, and their clothes are green, and parts of the skin is a bit darker. Sahasrarulka has red on their belt, yellow clothes, and they're a bit lighter in skin tone. That's how you can differentiate between their sprites since they're similar. To get into the lore, the two of them are descendants from the 7 sages. Also, his brother, Sahasrarulka, has a wife in Kakariko. She was the one to tell us of the legend of the Master Sword back in episode 1. In episode 2, it was their grandson that told us of where Sahasrarulka was hiding. Take that. We don't need another sequel to Birdemic. Those green levers reminds me so much of when I fought off against Twilight Fossil, Star-Lord back in Twilight Princess. That fight was pretty unique when compared to any other bosses in the game or even for the series for that matter. Instead of fighting the boss on foot like usual, you've had to fight by using the spinner. Basically, Link was riding a giant Beyblade to fight the boss. That fight has stuck with me ever since. On a final note, levers are a recurring enemy from the series. how this playthrough came to be is that a friend suggested me to play a Zelda game. There was a link to the past as a suggestion. I've thought to myself, why not? This game was one of the first Zelda games that I've played from years back. Back then, I thought that Link was called Zelda because the series was called The Legend of Zelda. But then, I've properly learned the name of the main protagonist. The reason for why I thought Link was called Zelda, it's because of game series like Mega Man, Super Mario Bros., and Sonic the Hedgehog. Since they featured the name of the main character, that's why I've had assumed Zelda being Link's name as a kid. We're definitely not going there. How is everyone enjoying the playthrough right now? If any of you have any questions involving the content or the channel in general, feel free to ask. If you ever want me to make a playthrough of a specific game title, please comment down below. I might make it into a regular playthrough like you're watching right now. Streams are usually every Sunday. The time varies and usually a few streams are in a single day. I have a playlist for what has been streamed already, so feel free to check that out. If you ever notice me stream on a different day, it's an exception. For example, on April Fools, I streamed Fallout 3 as a joke stream because it is an unusual day. The one thing to keep in mind for requests is that I'll play just about anything, as long as it's not an adult-themed game. Then, that request would get an immediate decline. But I'll be fine with playing a mature-rated game like Fallout 3 or even something like Corpse Party. And I'm not talking about partying with Corpse Husband here. Let's change topic. I'd like to talk about Zelda merchandise for a moment. Back in the mid-2000s, I would do a lot of window shopping online, where I would check random items. Eventually, I came across merchandise for Zelda, where it was a set of figures where Link was fighting an enemy in a type of scenario. The toys were made by Hasbro. I doubt that they even sold online nowadays, or that they're sold online but they cost so much more than what the store price was when it was originally sold in stores. This usually happens with some older products. For example, the first version of Pokémon Master Trainer. Probably the easiest to find in terms of Zelda products would be those from the 2010s. Since it hasn't been a long time since they were produced. In recent years, I've seen some fan-made products and they seem to be well made judging by what they show. There's even people who makes replicas of the Majora's Mask from its self-titled game. Hopefully, the buyers don't meet a terrible fate. Speaking of fan-made items, there's this guy who has created a diorama of Link's Awakening where it's Marin's house. He lists off everything that is required for the project and what needs to be done. For anyone interested in their project, I'll link it down below alongside all of the other links. We've encountered an error during recording. I've had to fix it real quick. Either way, back to our scheduled program. Now that we have a bad gaming accessory, we're capable of lifting those green rocks that makes an appearance outside the dungeon, including the bigger rocks. But it won't help with getting rid of the darker rocks that were seen at the Hyrulean Cemetery. Now the map shall open up more to us by gaining access to newer areas. Speaking of the Power Glove, there was a quote in the movie The Wizard, where they said "I love the Power Glove. It's so bad." The angry video game nerd made a video about it. If I remember that it was episode 14, which is quite an old episode going by the AVGN standards. Sometimes, you'll find hidden rooms like this one where they keep fairies. Since there's more than enough fairies in our bottles, I'll simply leave the room. Let's get rid of those rocks. Now we're much closer to the second boss of the game. We'll just need to get through this section and we'll be there. Just like the third episode, I'll give off the best strategy for defeating the boss. The boss of this dungeon is called Lanmola. Something to keep note for future dungeons. The flying tiles shall become more frequent as we go along with the dungeons. That trap only takes out half a heart per hit. The easiest way to defeat it is by swinging your blade. As far as I remember, they've only made an appearance through the games from the 90s. Something that used tiles as a weapon would have to be that one enemy in the first dungeon of Twilight Princess, where it would hide underneath a tile and attack Link if he got close. Speaking of Twilight Princess, I find it to be the scariest game in the series, because of how its art style is more realistic. For example, Skull Kid in Ocarina of Time, they're cuter looking. This is more or less going by looks and not the themes of the game. If we're going with something that's more grounded in reality, I'd have to go with the Amalgama, which is the boss from the Temple of Time. Essentially, Link gets to fight a giant spider. This reminds me of when I've had to fend myself against giant bugs. I might eventually play the game that I am speaking of in the context of giant bugs. Our Igor buddy is back. What I like about the name, it's that it resembles Igor, which is the name of a famous character from Persona. Not to be Mrs. Obvious, just light up those things and take out Igor. Then, you should be set for reaching the boss room for the current dungeon. Here's the strategy for defeating the boss. Just like the first boss, there shall many of them. The bow and arrow or even the ice rod shall be good for taking them out. Be careful when timing your hits or you may waste an arrow. The blade is a good option for if you'd wish to preserve your magic and arrows. In the second phase, there will be just a single one. This will change with the third boss of the games, just to let you all know in advance. We'll get to it at some point. Either way, during the second phase the boss will start bringing rocks down. This shouldn't be much of a surprise. After the fight you collect your heart container and second pendant. Then, you're off with the rest of the game. I'll reserve that for after the battle. Just like that, we don't even need to restart from the beginning of the dungeon and walk back upstairs. Now we're one Lanmola away from reaching the second phase. I can taste the victory that's in front of us. sweet victory. Now that we own the Pendant of Power, the pendant which matches that of Ganon, all we have left to collect for the Master Sword is the third pendant. Before we do that, I would like to present to you what the Power Glove can do and some other tasks. I can tell you from this point things will get even more interesting with the story. Also, the pedestal that we've just passed, it will require us a bit more progression. Just pull the big rock ahead and you'll receive 3 rupees. This is going to be extra important in a moment from now. Let's piss off this guy just for the fun of it. We're going to revisit him in the near future for certain. Then, we'll obtain that final bottle. Had to do a time skip for you all. Here's another location for 3 rupees. For the end of the episode we shall attempt at obtaining the next item of the game, which are the Zora Flippers. Just follow my lead and I'll show you where they're located. Instead of drowning, we shall finally be able to get more items like usual. If I've had to choose a favorite item, I'd choose the one that's around the corner, since it lets you cover more unexplored land. Sadly, it isn't like the 3D Zelda games, where you would get to go deeper into a body of water. Either way, you can still swim in the water. Keep going to the top of the screen. That area where the rock had been thrown, we could get special upgrades for our gear. I'll show you when possible. Hope that you've been enjoying today's episode. Now I'll stop messing around. I'm no Ugandan knuckle, but I can certainly show you the way. Like before, keep going up. In the next episode, we shall obtain the Zora flippers and the final pendant. Thanks for watching. I'll see you back in church.